take Dark Knight Returns, for example. The visual style of how it starts and how it ends are kind of different. I don't mind that. I kind of like that. I think that's kind of like human growth. It's cool. It doesn't have to be so specific from beginning to end. That's fine too. That would be like Watchmen. Watchmen is pretty consistent. Frank Miller and Klaus Janson and Lynn Varley brought something else visually. And that's how I treated COPRA. It's like, hey, these characters might look a little different 50 issues later, 10 issues later, even.
Heya, I'm Alex Morrissey, and this is Tradecraft. Thanks for listening. Each episode, I discuss the creative life and process with the people responsible for the books and comics we love. My guest today is Cuban-American comic book creator known for his series, COPRA, Michel Fiffe. One of the great side effects of 6 years of doing this podcast is reconnecting with the fun of comics and comics outside the mainstream container I worked in for a decade. A big part of this comes from my buddy Gary Duffner, former regular when this was a YouTube live stream sort of podcast thing. He loves it when comics are weird, and so I let him pick people to talk with, and damned if I wasn't an immediate fan of those creators. And I found Michel through Gary. Despite Michel's overt love for the mainstream comics of his youth, he creates outside of this. This duality synthesizes into stories that feel rooted in both worlds, yet entirely unique. I describe his work as ultra-personal, from the dramatic character entanglements of his stories to the line work and especially his colored pencil style of coloring. It's no surprise that mainstream publishers want to work with Michel. They all connect with his passion and want some of it too for their books. And I totally get it why Eric Larson brought Michel in for some Savage Dragon work. Eric has always carried the torch of independence, leading Image into what it is today. Michel and I talked after he ended COPRA, and he was quite open about the internal conflicts that arose and the wealth of unknowns in the wake of this massive change. What I'm sure will happen is he will continue to push boundaries in a personal way on his next project. But until then, expect a special collection of his signature comic in the near future. This is me with Michel Fiffe.
Yeah, that's almost like Paul Smith drawing the X-Men. He was kind of like
Yeah.
that. Not issue to issue, but yeah, he was sort of a traveling dude.
Yeah.
The dream, I think, I sort of harbored similar dreams, touring with a band or something. And back then it was like, that's doable. I think I could do that. I could, you know.
Paper sticking to your sweaty body while you're trying to work, but
Yeah, it's just comics, man.
dude, I don't think I've told this story in a long time, but a long, I mean, this is probably what, 1993? My college buddy and I got our first apartment in Manhattan. We're in Hell's Kitchen, and it was such a hot summer, and we didn't have air conditioning. And we were trying to draw our pages like in our studio, but you would lift your arm up and the paper would just be stuck to your forearms. And it was so bad. So he ended up calling his buddy over at DC, who I really wasn't even, I don't even know what he did. I don't think he was like a full editor. I think he was like an assistant to somebody who he's now a big shot in sort of the graphic novel publishing, not in the main two, but he's like, all right, I got you guys. So we went over at like 8:45 in the morning with our portfolios and whatever we needed. DC at the time was in this weird building on 46th Street between 6th and 7th Avenue. So we go in and he's like, get off at this floor and walk down the hall and knock on the door. So he did, and he opened it up and it was like they had a library and nobody was in it. And he's like, you guys can come and work in here. Just don't talk to anybody. We're like, okay. I was drawing my Marvel assignments and he was doing his DC work, and we were hidden away in air conditioning. Yeah.
That's great. Was this in the aughts?
This is no 1993. Yeah.
1993. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it was so long
I
ago.
know.
Who
A
knows?
a million billion years ago.
They're out of here anyway,
I
so it doesn't
know.
matter.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking, man. I
Yeah,
just think having worked in huge corporations in my life, you're just a line item on the spreadsheet of whatever the business action is, whatever brand you
sure.
are.
Yeah, I think it's always been like that. I think it's always been a corporate run thing. And us growing up with comics, we just didn't see that or notice it or care.
Right.
And then once we realized it, it was fine. We were already too entrenched in the love for these characters and these properties,
Yeah, well, I that's
like
that's the hook, buddy.
that's what it is.
Like, that's the hook for everyone who's doing this, is that you love the medium, you love your relationship with comic books and the characters so much that there's this willingness to kinda, like, walk over hot coals and back again, and then back again, and then back again, because you're like, "Well, like, I love this."
Sure. Yeah, and that's every creative industry, I feel like. Movies, music, uh, fine art. I mean, people do it for free
Mhm.
if they
They
could,
do.
sometimes do, yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't know, I think, these companies finding their own identity within a corporate structure is sort of common, right? It's cyclical, sometimes it's super corporate and sometimes there's something weird and identifiable about them. Just depends on who's running things or what's allowed, what the landscape temperature is
Yeah.
like.
No, totally.
Mm. And now I think it's on an upswing. It's what it feels like
You mean
from my
the
perspective.
identity of the actual company?
Of some of these
Yeah.
companies, yeah, yeah, not only with the movies, but with the actual comics themselves. Yeah.
No, I got the distinction. I agree. How's life in Brooklyn going
Good so far.
so far? Wow.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see, it's a day-to-day thing. No, it's good, life after COPRA is very specific, I thought it'd be quieter and having more time to myself, and that's just not the case, it's just more work, actually, with other projects and planning
Mhm.
and finalizing things and future books and collections and stuff, and
Yeah.
on top of commissions and, I have a bunch of shows coming up, so it's like the convention circuit is revving up and, gotta prepare for that, so it's a lot of activity, but it's not comic book making per se. I mean, there's planning for comic books, but I'm not sitting at the board drawing an actual page ready to get it printed,
Yeah.
which was my life for 13 years. So it's different in that regard, but otherwise I'm still busy, busier than ever. So I wasn't expecting that.
Well, I think when you run your own show, there are so many hats you have to wear. You can't just be the guy sitting at the drawing table. You have to kind of have all these kind of versions of you just to keep you honest and going, because it's so easy to get mired into one thing and put off a couple things a bit longer than they should, and next thing you know, you're like, "Ooh, oh, okay, now what do I do?"
That's why I started self-publishing, to get stuff done, but I really didn't want to do that at first.
Hmm,
And then when I saw that was my only option, that's when I was like, "All right, I guess I'll cross this threshold." But really, I did not want to do that because I wanted to be the person to just sit and make the
right.
comics. I thought, writing and drawing the thing was enough. Coloring it was enough.
Mhm,
Creating the thing enough. I didn't want to deal with, spreadsheets or invoices or shipping or printers. That seemed that seemed impossible,
mhm,
impossible and boring as hell. And then it just became part of the process, So to me, it's just, yeah, wearing all these different hats is a way to stay sane, actually. So you don't burn out on one job or another. You kind of just jump to something else because there's always something that needs to get done.
mhm.
There's always like a book that needs to get shipped, an order to finalize, um, something to scan and send and tweak, and there's always something.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting because it's a very going back to, back to 1993 in this conversation, is that that's that was it. We just sat and we drew or we wrote. Like, we didn't have like, We weren't expected to promote the thing.
Right.
The responsibilities were really limited to your craft at that time. Now, the craft has to extend into all these different avenues, and then, like, for you, not only are you running your own imprint, 'cause you're also you're running a Patreon, which is a whole it's a whole job.
Yeah, that's a whole thing altogether, yeah. And people do crowdfunding, and that's a whole 'nother job too. I
Yeah.
mean, and some people just do the convention circuit, and that's all they do, and that itself is a job that's so grueling. Or they do school, school visits.
Mhm.
But back in the day, I suspect that I would just go the self-publishing route. I don't know what kind of market it would be, whether it be the '80s or the '90s, but I suspect that I would just put it out myself,
Mhm.
and it would probably sink because there's no strong infrastructure the way there was 15, 20 years ago for self-publishers to kind of make zine
Mhm.
culture alive. That's how I came up,
Yeah.
really. So a couple of decades earlier, it would be the black and white boom. It would be me maybe going to like an independent publisher and hoping that they put it out.
Right. And stay
So I
and
have to go
stay
there.
solvent.
Yeah, and that's still a publisher, so that would still be cool.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what I was expecting to do in a weird way, you know?
So why not? Why didn't you do that? Why did you say, "I'm gonna do it myself"? I guess there's multiple points at this one, like, what made you diagnose the situation and say, "I guess I have to do this by myself," and
Mm.
why did you maybe you had, but why did you not pursue a publisher to put your work out?
Oh, but I did.
Okay. Okay. Alright.
That's a thing. Like, I exhausted every single avenue I could think of. I read all the guidelines, I took everyone's advice from, articles and editors and peers or not peers, sorry, pros
Mhm.
that I met in person and at conventions, and through letters, I would write and call people, professionals, and they would give me advice, and they're working stiffs too,
Mhm.
so it's like they don't have a magic formula figured out. But I tried everything. I submitted samples to the big 2, to the small publishers. I did mainstream looking stuff. I did indie looking stuff. I was trying to figure out what my voice was
Right.
because I wanted to encompass both of those extremes.
Mhm.
And I think that may have just put me in a specific place of I wasn't really advancing in either direction. I was just sort of stuck in the middle, and I really had to choose. And because I didn't choose, I just kind of like I was dormant for a while. I was just kind of like plugging away, trying to get better at drawing and writing and really sharpening my craft. But I wasn't really advancing in any sort of professional capacity, right?
Mhm.
And so for a while, there were years where I just drew for myself. I drew flyers for bands. I did mini comics. I wasn't really super aggressive in pursuing a career because I was like, well, the career has to come to me. I was really um, delusional in that way.
Mm.
I was really aggressive at first. It didn't work out, so I recoiled a little bit, and and then that's when I started doing zines and minis and web comics and stuff. And I tried re-entering the arena by doing the same stuff, submitting work, talking to editors, trying to get a foot in the door, and that just wasn't working as quickly as I wanted it to. It's sort of like a weird entitlement. It's like I'm putting all this work in, I'm not seeing the results. What am I doing
Right.
wrong? It's super frustrating. And while that wasn't working out career wise, I would get little jobs here and there, but it just wasn't a career,
Mhm.
right? That's when I started realizing, well, I got to put it out myself. If anything, I have to be proud of what I do. I have to do a comic that I envision and I'm responsible for. It's not a team effort. I'm not waiting for a publisher to greenlight it. I'm not waiting for an audience to love it. I just need to create the thing. And that's where Zegas came from. That was my
Yeah.
first self-published comic. Uh, I didn't know what it was really. I didn't have like a slick sales pitch for it. I just kind of made a comic that I wanted to exist, and I just put it out myself. And it was scary and weird and thrilling, and I was super proud of it. And but I did try everything, dude. I tried everything before
Yeah.
then. I mean, even Zegas itself, I actually submitted that to tons of publishers, and no one took it. If they even responded, they just passed on
Right.
it.
Right.
And, you know what? I don't blame them, but I was still frustrated. I remember the frustration of like, "Well, fuck, what's it take?
Right. Well,
What's it?"
this is like 15-ish, 15 years ago, maybe a little longer.
Oh, yeah, I started Vegas around
Nine.
2009,
Okay. So yeah, so 15, 16 years
and I
ago.
published the first issue a year later, about a year and a half
Yeah.
later. Yeah,
So I mean, that's like
short run.
I mean, the market wasn't the market that it is now. The market now is way broader. What's sort of on the shelf on for availability in stores. So I think the sensibilities of readers have broadened. So maybe the audience right now that is in love with Copra would have responded to Zagus had that been the timing. Maybe.
I don't I don't know, maybe, there's no way to tell. I think maybe the readership was always broad, and there was always all sorts of comics out there, and it was just highly competitive, and for some reason, what I was offering didn't land.
Yeah.
No matter what I did, whether it be Vegas, whether it be my previous samples or my previous independent efforts, it just wasn't sticking.
Hmm.
Timing, luck, the work itself, subject matter, the style, all those things just weren't
Sure.
clicking in this like harmonic way. The same way that when I did Copra, that it started building and building. It wasn't instant, but it was a building, it was a momentum that was real. And because I treated Copra like a job, I kept producing in a timely
You showed
manner.
up.
Just yeah, showing up every month with a full issue, um, no matter how it looked. I didn't shit it out. I worked really hard at it. I wanted it to look professional and as best as I possibly could make it, but it was consistent. It wasn't precious. Whereas before, it was like, I got to reinvent the
Yeah.
wheel. Every issue has to be an amazing work of
Hmm.
art, better than every other comic book ever. And I still stand by those old comics, but I could see why no one cares. Like what you know what I mean? Like it just didn't find an audience in that big way.
Yeah.
And Copra, maybe because it was serialized or it's a revenge story or has people in costumes and cool powers, I it was an excuse for me to tap into that love of that genre
Yeah.
material.
Yeah.
Those old comics that I grew up with, which I wasn't tapping into previously. I was ignoring it. I was kind of actively ignoring it because I thought, oh, why regress to that? We're about pushing the form forward, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's super cocky, pretentious shit, right? But and that's still sort of in me, but I was ignoring this very important element of my love of comics. Being unapologetic about it too. This isn't an ironic thing. This isn't like a guilty pleasure. I fucking hate that term. I don't have a guilty
No.
pleasure when it comes to
Right. Right.
comics.
Right.
I love it or I
Yeah.
right? And and that's what I was doing. I was harnessing this love for the genre stuff, my nostalgic little kid stuff, the current genre stuff that I loved from like my
Hmm.
peers, um, independent stuff, European stuff, manga, newspaper strip. I mean, everything. I was just throwing everything I can, everything I've learned up to that point. I finally had a project in which to channel all that stuff. Uh, but maybe it took all those years of trying and bashing my head against the wall to arrive there. I don't know, maybe. I really was looking to like, when I was a teenager, really trying to break in. I was like, yeah, I want to work for Marvel and DC, and then go off and do my independent stuff.
Sure.
That was always part of the thing. Like, oh, maybe Fantagraphics will publish this or Dark Horse or whoever's around. Slave labor,
Right. Oh yeah.
Sirius. I remember sending samples to Sirius. Remember that? Poison Elves.
Oh God. Yeah. 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 That was like there was a period that was like the biggest book. It was so weird. Like that was
Yeah,
the book when you went to like the New York shows or whatever. Like huge crowds.
yeah, yeah. And that was so naive. I just thought if it was on the shelf, it's a big company. Like Marvel and DC are the bigger companies,
Right.
but I had no idea that Fantagraphics was like a house that was barely keeping it together, you
Right.
know?
It's like punk rock.
Yeah, and putting out like the best
Hmm.
comics on top of putting out the Comics Journal, right? Like that is just putting out the Comics Journal is a, an awesome effort,
Hmm.
you know? But the comics that they put, I had no idea what the scope of the industry really was. I remember seeing Alternative Comics. I sent them samples, and they were kind enough to invite me over to their headquarters and review my work, which was not really aligned at all with their aesthetic. And it was a dude's house
Mhm.
in Gainesville, Florida. It was like I was expecting like
An office.
the bullpen,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
right.
Something, at least a drawing desk, right? You're a publisher, you publish comics. It was just a basic house.
Yeah.
Um, so I would slowly realize what comics were, like the reality of what comics were, and this was like 98, 99. So comics themselves weren't doing very well. They're recovering still from the bust,
Yeah.
the boom and the bust. So it was in a very weird place. It was very diverse, but everyone was sort of, tightening their
Oh, dude, it
belts.
was it was I mean, as a creator in those late '90s, it was you were on an island and the water was coming up, and there was only so much room, and it was not a comfortable place to be.
I bet.
Yeah.
Being on the inside, yeah, it's like, where's your next paycheck coming from? How do you build a career
It
from
was
that, you
terrible,
know?
and I mean, that's why you saw so many people taking off to go to animation in those late '90s because
Sure.
they were like, "Wait, you're gonna
Yeah.
pay me to work 5 days a week?" You know?
Yeah.
They're like, I'm in." Like, and they all took off, and they
Yeah,
some of them did some amazing work in that period of time, and many of them are still
sure.
doing it because it made sense.
Yeah, and that's the way things usually are, right? It's just sort of unpredictable, but I've just always wanted to be a cartoonist ever since a little kid, and I thought it would be like this thing that you just do forever. And I would see other people's careers. I would notice, the older generation, Silver Age dudes sticking around through even the 90s. I'm like, oh, so that's an option. You can survive, and everyone's kind of doing well. And again, it came from a super naive. I mean, I was a child. I was like 9 or 10, and then even as a teenager, I'm like, this is still doable. You could still pay the rent if you draw 8 ball comics, right?
Totally. Of course
Uh,
you can.
Not knowing that you had to do album covers and
Flyers and
graphic design, yeah, stuff like that, supplement until you go over and you make a hit book, and even then, there's no guarantee.
no.
So that was the reality of the industry, and that's what I was dealing with in the aughts. And then by the time COPRA came around, I just sort of, chiseled my little corner of comics,
Mhm.
and I've been able to do comics since. So really, that was um, my saving grace is just kind of doubling down on the self-publishing. From there, my career took off in the way that I had envisioned originally.
Right. I mean, it's just a well, I mean, I guess it's a different version of the vision, like the vision wasn't this, service for, the titles, and then kind of doing your
Mhm,
thing on the side hustle. Now it's doing the thing your own and then
mhm.
doing a couple things for the big guys here and there.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, and that's always fun. It's I don't know how people do that exclusively. I mean, I get it, that's just not my
Yeah.
situation at all. Um, the funny thing about this whole genre thing about doing superheroes and that kind of work is that, I did a comic before Cobra called Death Zone, and I played it straight. It was a superhero comic. It wasn't, up to that point. I think most indie guys, whenever they would do a superhero thing, it was to mock it or you
Yeah.
know bag on it and stuff. And that to me is not terribly interesting. You know, I see a lot of great looking comics that are just like lame dick jokes at the expense of like the actual story and art and characters. And it's like that's just
Right.
boring. And it's not. If it was funny, if it was listen, if it was Johnny Ryan, if it was Johnny Ryan or like Josh Simmons, yeah, those guys are great and they're actually funny.
Mhm.
So they can do whatever they want. But Josh Simmons has written and drawn some of the best Batman comics in the past 30 years, you
Yeah.
know? And it's not that he's mocking the thing, he's having fun with it, but it comes from an earnest place. I don't think he really wants to draw Batman. I don't think it's earnest in that way, but I think it's earnest in that he's putting a lot of work into this thing, as opposed to some like slap together, shitty looking what the comic,
Right.
It's like, come on. So when I approached it like, okay, well, what if I was hired to draw this comic
Mhm.
from this is what I could do. It's not going to look like what you're publishing now, but this is what I could do. This is what I think I could do.
Mhm.
And I pulled it off for 16 pages. I'm like, okay, this is reasonable. I think I could do a little bit more every month. And then I just kind of figured out the template of the story and the characters and the approach, what kind of comic it should be. Um, and that's how Copa was
Yeah.
born. And it was all very quick. It was all very I because I felt like, well, I don't wanna waste too much time on this stuff. I can't spend, like, months world building and doing character bibles and designs. It's like, "Fuck no," like, that's not what they did back then. I'm not gonna do that now. And if this doesn't work, I don't wanna be like, "Shit, I just wasted a year developing this loser project." So I'm like, "It's gotta be quick. I gotta hit the printer now,
Mhm.
put it out, and to just keep putting it out, keep putting it out, keep putting it out." And, 13 years later, I'm finally done with 50 issues.
I know, that's crazy. Yeah, I think when I read the final thing, what I and you said it in different versions so far, but I was like, "Oh, this is a love letter to the genre of superhero team comic books in a, almost a heightened soap opera format." That's like I'm like, so you're doing like you were talking about the daily strip, how like those sort of more soap opera daily strips are about the personalities in
Mhm.
concert with like so like you mix that with the Claremont-esque, X-Men or the Wildcats and their most sort of like, sweatpants wearing version of themselves. Like that's kind of like the vibe I was getting. I'm like, "Oh, this is the kind of story he's doing on the surface." Like, and then he's telling what he wants to say within the subtext of that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, again, I just wanted a thing, a project where I could do all sorts of stuff,
Mhm.
where I can tell, like, really quiet human stories, but not have it be just that. I wanna draw some wild
Right,
shit. I wanna
something's
draw
gonna come
some violent.
smashing through the wall eventually.
Yeah, yeah, and I want it to have purpose, but I also if it doesn't have purpose, then so what? Like, it's a fun
Mhm.
thing, but I want it to have personality. That's what I like in my comics, Even corporate comics, you could still put a personality through, whether it be through the writing or the inking or just something. I gotta see the human touch,
Yeah.
you know? And I figured if I could inject some of that into my work, someone's bound to like it because that's what I like out of comics.
Mhm.
Doesn't have to be this super cold, sterile piece of shit, cookie cutter bullshit comic. It could be a little, crusty and I don't want to say rough around the edges because that suggests that it's not worthy,
Right.
you know, of the shelf standard. But it's got to have a little grit, a little stank to it.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I like about all the stuff I like.
Yeah.
You know, Even the super guys, that's their personality. They're just super slick, polished dudes, but you could tell it's not like this affectation or this belabored thing. It's like that's just who they are. Like Garcia Lopez is a god,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
He is the artist,
Yeah.
right? Um, so, but then there's also like the other end of the spectrum. So I just like it all, and that's why COPRA exists, just for me to sort of express these feelings about these styles and approaches.
I can't stress how I think important that is. And you were talking about how, like, in Zegas, you didn't like you kind of really were trying to push the envelope. You're like, "I made the best thing ever." But it may have been a more of an intellectual effort than a an emotional effort from you. Does that make sense? And it's
Sure.
like when you read a book and someone is just like using every word in the dictionary to describe stuff in these huge block paragraphs, and you're just you got a shovel and you're digging your way through each page to kind of get through this thing.
Yeah.
But there's a eunice in how you present everything that you do that I've seen, which I think that's where a lot of connection happens between you and the people who read your work.
Right. 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 Yeah, I mean, and I've been fortunate to have that, and that's kind of what I was talking about, where it's like I'm glad people recognize that there's somebody doing this and they like it. They want more
Uh-huh.
of this thing. And I'm of the generation that I grew up reading Wizard
Mm.
and the Comics Journal, you know, and I kind of value both of those things for very different reasons. And one I think has stood the test of time, obviously, and the other was just sort of like just something else, just like like a mainstream, you know, to to paraphrase Gary Groth, just submoronic pablum, you know. But I grew up with that
Mhm.
shit, you know what I mean? Like I like the glossy, colorful idiocy of it, you know, and the fact that it's monetarily driven. I think there's a value there. I think it's this sort of thing. I do like the purity of a if something is popular, that means the people have voted for it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's deemed worthwhile to the larger culture. And maybe it's a trend, so it's only its value is finite, or maybe it's perennial, so it's going to be on the shelf forever. But there's something about that I like, and that's why I appreciate something like Wizard because it's like, hey, you want it to sell, make it a fucking superhero,
Mhm.
knock it off, like get with it, You want to sell more units, add a gun, add some TNA. It's that mentality that's sort of like, we're taught to hate it and look down on it, but that's business and that's a part of everything, right?
Yeah.
But then at the other end, it's like, well, fuck business. Like, I want to make my art and I want to express myself no matter what. The thing with that is that you have to take the lumps. You have to be prepared to have no one give a shit. If it doesn't connect,
Yeah.
you could do anything you want. You could express yourself however you want, but if it doesn't connect, well, then that's the
Yeah,
problem.
and everybody
And
cares.
working in a void, yeah, working in a void isn't
No, it sucks.
fun. Yeah, and then and you gotta nurture these things, So yeah, I could have gone and done like Vegas number 3, but only 10 people would have cared.
Right.
And I just didn't want that to be a career because that's not a career, that's a hobby,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I just had to give it one last shot to see if I could do the whole monthly thing, the whole monthly genre thing.
Mhm.
Um, and I've described it like this before, but it was like having my cake and eating it too. I could do that kind of mainstream esque thing, but it's still in my style, my version
Mhm.
of what I think that thing should be. So it's not compromised in that way, but it's still a genre thing. And that's why I'm still stuck in the middle of both worlds. It's like it's kind of like back to square one. It's like, well, the mainstream dudes don't like it and the indie dudes don't like it, but that middle part, people like you mentioned recognize that
Mhm.
there's a love there and they like that love. They could relate to it sometimes even. Um, that's what keeps me afloat, and that's why I say I'm fortunate.
Maybe you can rebrand your publishing company to Venn Publishing, and you're that little football in the middle of the Venn diagram of where everything overlaps.
That's Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, but that's a part of the audience. I mean, that's an important part of the
Of
audience,
course it is.
because I think people are too busy, trying to follow both extremes, and trying to milk and tap into those extremes. I'm just doing my thing, and my thing just happens to fall in the middle. And it doesn't mean it's middle of the road. It just means I like both of those extremes, and I'm just going to play with all of it because to me, it's all comic.
Yeah.
I was a kid and I was like absorbing all this stuff. I wasn't like, oh, this is lesser than or this is better. It's like I recognized what was popular and I recognized what was off the beaten path, but it's still cool. It was all cool,
Totally.
even if I didn't love, it was like that's still fucking kind of cool that this exists, And I think that's just an attitude that has carried me still. I still feel that way,
It took a wh it
you
took
know.
dude, it took a while for me to understand that people could make their own comic books, you outside of Marvel or DC. Grew up in the '70s, so I
Sure.
saw that's all I saw were Marvel and DC comics, and I remember and then you start seeing First Comics, and you would see these other companies appear, and I bless one friend of mine I grew up with. He was always looking, like, where's a black and white cover? Where's a single color cover?
Mhm.
He had it. He figured out that somebody was making this by themselves or, a small group of people. Nexus. He's like, "Hey, check this out." And I'm like, "It's black and white. Like, what happened to the color?" He's like, "No, no, like, they made it themselves." I'm like, "All right, cool." And then
Yeah,
it's so good to have, like, this variety, and the fact that there's people like that everywhere who are always looking for that different thing.
thankfully. I benefit from
Oh,
that.
for sure you do. I mean, at first blush, people walking through the convention, and they're looking at Jose Luis Garcia Lopez and everybody who's learned from him, down the aisles, and they'll walk past you, and you don't look like any of that stuff. Now, probably a big chunk of people just keep on walking, but then there's the people who stop and go like, "What's this?"
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely a language, a visual language, just a tonal thing where it's just a frequency where it's just like you either get it or you don't.
Mhm,
And I still get people who just discover the book and they love it almost immediately and they're hooked. And they're on board for the whole ride. Whereas other people they know about it, they just they don't care. It just doesn't speak to them. I get that. That's very
mhm.
specific. And the funny thing about Copra is that normally that would have gotten to me. And now it's just like I understand that it's just not for you. That's fine. I can't really worry about that. I can only worry about what I can do and who's on board,
Yeah.
right? And sort of cultivate that relationship. I can't worry about getting more and more and more and more. That's another conversation. Um, but I don't know. Yeah, the intimate nature of comics is so special to me. I mean, you're talking about Nexus and Ninja Turtles, and I love those comics. And before then, I mean, guys like Robert Crumb or Spain Rodriguez in the undergrounds, it's like just the fact that they created this 24-page thing on their own. They just hand lettered it, and you could tell it's like coming from a very personal place. That's such a beautiful thing,
Mhm.
That's so fucking cool. Right? Whether it be Zap Zero or Trash Man, and later it bleeds into things like Love and Rockets. They're
Totally.
carrying on that tradition, or Eight Ball, or the work of Evan Dorkin. When I discovered Milk and Cheese and Pirate Core,
Yeah.
I was blown away. I was blown away because it was a guy like cracking jokes, making super personal observations
Mhm.
on the page, telling a story, being funny as hell,
And really good at his
drawing and
craft.
yeah, he was a great artist. I
Still
mean, there
is.
was a period in high school where I was just swiping Evan Dorkin left and right. I mean, I have flyers to prove it. So it's just like all these things were a huge influence, and I'm like, "Oh, this is what comics are. This is what I love. This is the thing."
Uh-huh.
And so I carried that over with my love for things like the X-Men and Suicide Squad
Mhm.
and stuff like that, and John Byrne and super slick people, like Mount Rushmore
Yeah,
type.
yeah.
Like I don't know how to get there, but I want to be in the field. I want to be in the arena. So yeah, it's just a weird mix.
Did you can so here's a question when it comes to style. I never tried to think too much about style when I was drawing. Like, it was always just sort of I always kind of felt like the pencil is gonna answer the problem for me, like, what it has to be.
Mhm.
When you were trying to do, mainstream work, like, did you connect with the style or did you struggle with the style? Like, what was it?
I wasn't aware of the style as much as I probably should have. I was just doing my
Okay.
thing, whatever that. And it was me putting on like, all right, I'm gonna do a mainstream thing. Let's say a sample that shows a villain and a superhero or something. Maybe show a little background, show different angles. All the things that they tell you to do in samples.
Mhm.
Maybe a quiet scene, some fight scenes. Maybe redraw a comic that already exists, show it in your way, and I would add a little of my own flair to it. I wasn't trying to go psycho on it. I was still like pretty, um, I don't know, not conservative because it was still in my style, but I wasn't too aware of it to be
Yeah.
honest. Um, and I'm not aware of it at the moment. Even though after the fact, I love to break down styles and deconstruct the hell out of it, of what I've done and what I like about others, and I really get off on that. But when I'm actually doing it, I'm just not good at like being like choosing like, okay, I'm going to do this style now.
Okay.
What I do is what does the scene
Yep.
require, right? Does the scene require something chaotic or something tame, something gritty and dirty, or something really clean and beautiful? sometimes within the same panel, right? Sometimes all that and more, and that in itself could be a faux pas. Like you want to keep your style consistent, but again, it's just in service of the scene or the story or the issue. Uh, but style deconstruction is something that's super interesting to me. I still love, yeah, I still love to think about that.
For me, I realized this forensic eye that I acquired as a maker of things. Like I may, was able to look at something and I have this definition of like, if I can't figure out how somebody made it, I fall in love with that work because I go, oh my God, like I don't know how they got to that point. And that becomes kind of this zone of magic land out there. Like, oh wow, they're
Right.
reaching into something. So who do you go through periods of different artists like to kind of like really break down their
Well,
stuff?
yeah, I guess when I say I don't apply these things to my own work, that's not really true. I just do it
Okay.
subconsciously in a way. Like for example, like I went through a period where in COPRA where I felt like I needed a little bit more design bombast that was a little bit like early 90s imageness. And I was interested in marrying that with what I typically did up to that point. And so it wasn't like I busted out those books and I mimicked it or I copied it. It was more of a kind of a visceral, distant feel. Like I remember what those things look like and that feeling I got from them. I'm going to apply that feeling towards what's in front of the
Hmm.
page. And so what you got was this weird mix that's not obviously an homage to the 90s, but again, it fit the scene for the story that I wanted. It was very tone specific. And so yeah, and that appreciation, sometimes I do bust out books by artists and I just look at it, I just absorb
Hmm.
it. Again, I'm not like studying it to the point where I'm like copying or tracing or seeing what they do or why they do it. It's because it's still magical to me. Even if I do figure it out, I still, like all the artists I like as I grew up, to me it was all magic,
Yeah.
right? Um, and to me, and it still sort of is. Uh, So I would deconstruct all different types of people, everyone from like, Rob Liefeld to Dan Spiegel, you know, to Michael Golden to like Jaime Hernandez, just all very different, I'm just pulling out those
Yeah. Yeah.
names because, I have stacks of their comics around, it could be everyone from, I was just looking at a bunch of Sam Keith,
Hmm.
and, I figured that he's someone who mixed a lot of influences
Hmm.
in a way that really served him and made him stand out. You know, I don't know how I apply my love for Sam Keith to my own work. It might come out here and there, but I'm not actively choosing like, okay, I'm gonna draw a super bulky dude with lots of arm hair, and tons of ribbons, because that to me that would be like aping it.
Sure.
That would be like I'm just copying him, So I'd rather just kind of like apply the feeling I get from his work to my work. And this all sounds kind of woo
No,
and
no, no. I
whatever.
I I, dis- I disagree. I think the sensibility, the idea of a friend of mine was she gave the most terrifying, but what I think is some great advice once when I was working on something on a book. And she's like, I like this. I thought she's like, but I think really feel you found your voice like starting at this point. And like from that point on, like it really has this kind of vibe and I really get it. I'm really getting into it. And and you don't want to hear like, oh, I got to go rewrite everything for this. But she's like, what you can do is you can just kind of read it and then start on a blank page and rewrite it without editing it. And like the idea was terrifying.
Right.
What that was is what you just said. It's looking at something, it's taking something in and then re envisioning it with what you can hold on to in your conscious and subconscious as you create.
Right. Right. And in a way it's powerful because it's what you retain,
Yeah.
like what's left over. You're not copying it what's in front of you. You're just kind of like you're facing the memory of it, right? And the impact it has on you. And you're trying to then apply that sort of abstract thing
Yes.
and what you get is just something different. So it's not homage, it's not, you're not mimicking. It's sort of, I'm in awe of artists who mimic easily. I can't do that.
Hmm.
Even if I tried, I just can't do it. It's always filtered through
Through you.
whatever I do. Yeah,
I
I
envy
see
that.
things.
I think I'm way too much of a mimic. Like I think I could. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
I could have a career doing emulations of other people's stuff because like I can see, like I said, I can see how everything was built. Like I look at it, go, okay, I can do that again. But what I like is that there's a strong, you in there that is just saying, all right, well, it's going to have to be done. Like it's going to come out. I don't know. It's like you almost have like this is the only pencil I can use, like but it
yeah,
requires you to use pastels. You're like, don't care. I only use a pencil, and like so that
yeah,
there's no way you're going to get the same solution. So the solution is going to
right.
be way more indexed towards you than it will be toward the other way.
Yeah. You know, what I should have done, well, it's interesting, like the mercenary thing about all this, especially breaking in, we were talking about breaking in. It's like what I should have done is like broken out a book that was popular. Like what's the popular style of like the late 90s, like your
Joe
or like
Quesada.
post Mad, Joe Quesada, sure, but like, Joe
Hmm.
Mad, post, Roger Cruz type,
Hmm.
uh, post Stephen Platt type of
Yep.
thing. Um, and just mimic that and just be like, okay, you want to be employed, this is what they're employing,
Totally.
do that. There's something, again, there's something beautiful in that purity. It's not about like art or cultivating your own vision or your own voice. It's like, fuck that, you want a job, don't you? And so I've always been juggling that
Yeah.
where it's like, well, I'm too like, well, no, I'm not going to copy anyone.
Right.
I'm my own person. Like, what, that, well, this is art, right? But then you also have to eat and make, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
I
So it's
know.
just it's guidebook. There's no guidebook for the stuff. So I would be like, I would get all in my head about being an artist and following your muse and stuff, and then I would read an interview with like Howard Chaykin or Kyle Baker, and they're like, "Pff, you need a job. You need to just,
Get to work.
you need to put big boy pants on and like, that was their voice, that was their
Hmm.
advice toward the world in interviews that I would read. So, as an aspiring cartoonist, I was like, all right, what direction do I take? I was confused and I was stubborn. That's not a good
Well,
combination.
I mean, I think, listen, I think the stubborn factor, so I always say like you you have to be really stupid to become successful in the thing that you're going for because you have to be
Oh, easy, easy.
but because you have to be stupid enough to not recognize the next to impossible task that you're undertaking.
Well, that's a fear. That's a fear of like, are you that delusional,
Right. But
crazy person screaming into the
but you
clouds
have to
of like,
push through that period of sucking, failing, all that crap that goes with it
sure, sure.
in the terms of going, no, 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 no. Like, I know that if I keep going, the thing is under. Now, yes, there are plenty of examples of the impoverished who are probably still doing this well into their 70s who are like, no, 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 my screenplay is going to take off. Like, like that's just is that's on the other side of the successes. Um,
Sure, sure.
the modern approach is take all the work that you can get. If it means you have to draw like Keith Giffen or whomever it is for this thing, you do that
Mhm,
to pay the bills, to eat the food, to do whatever the thing is, but
mhm.
you don't excise that vision and that hunt from within and you keep pushing that thing,
Yeah, as long as it doesn't get beaten out of you
which is
or you're
another risk.
too exhausted or too, or it's like, the job is the muse. Like paying my rent is like, I often find it funny that some dudes say like a Dan Jurgens, right? Who I love, one of the first writer artists in mainstream comics that I recognized. He's never inked himself
Hmm,
because it's almost like silly. It's like, why are you going to draw it
right.
twice? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I'm getting paid to be a storyteller. Like knock it off. Or you're going to letter your own thing? Why?
There's,
That's
no,
ridiculous.
listen, there's so
You're
much
going to
value.
color it too?
There's so much
You're
value in
going to
that.
color
Yeah.
it? You dumbass, like, what?
He's
Oh, you're gonna self-publish? You're gonna self-publish because no one wanted to publish you. Oh, you know what I
yeah.
mean? So, there's, like, both those are both extremes
It's
already, you
so
know?
right
On
and wrong at the same time. Like there is no truth about it, but yeah, sure, of course. Like, listen, it's a product that shows up into a store once a month, and then if it sells out, it's gone. Like it's like an old television show. And the fact of the matter is, the companies, they're not saying like we're making a piece of art this month. Everybody, let's get together and
yeah,
let's hold hands and let's think
yeah,
about
yeah, totally.
like that's not what they're doing. They're like, we got to get this on time. They
Right.
want every all five parties of that team to deliver on time. That's all they want.
Yeah. Yeah, but, you know, the independents too, the indies, they feel the
Of
same way.
course.
It's not like a group effort of I mean, it's a group effort to make money to survive, but it's not like, "Let's hold hands and pray for
Right.
this." It's not art club. It's like, you gotta make it's a
It
business, it's a
is.
business.
It is.
And, speaking of delusional, there's a
Hey, are you gonna
scene
get personal on me now? Wait a minute.
no, no, no. Well, maybe, but, there's a documentary called The Decline of the Western Civilization Part
Yes.
2. First one was about the punk years in LA, and the second one was about the glam metal scene in LA. And there's a scene that haunts me, which is just all these people who are like determined, like, I'm gonna be famous. I'm gonna be famous. I'm gonna make it. And the director, Penelope Spears, asks, well, what if you don't make it? And they're like, what do you mean? There's no plan B. Of course I'm gonna make it. I'm a star. What are you talking about?
Right.
You've never heard of these people
Uh-huh.
since. And that scene has haunted me,
Yeah.
right? In this way where it's like, oh yeah, what if I'm that delusional dude who's still like submitting screenplays at
Uh-huh.
70? And bless the dude who's still submitting things at
Sure.
70. Like, go have at it. But I also don't want to be that delusional where it's like ridiculous,
Right.
you know. And that's what I was afraid of in doing this stuff. Because again, if the publishers aren't behind you or if the readership isn't buying into what you're doing, then are they wrong? You have to there's something in you that has to be like, "Yes, they are
Mhm.
wrong. The world is wrong.
Mhm.
The universe is telling me don't do this." And you have to be like, "Well, fuck off, universe. I'm gonna do this anyway." And that's where the stubbornness, um, was good for me.
Totally.
That's when it paid off.
Yeah.
When I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna do this one last time. Let's see what happens, and if not, fine.
I'm
It'll
gonna
be a
do this one
hobby."
last time thing one last time.
Yeah, yeah. That's true. That did happen a couple times,
Again.
actually. I have friends to attest to that, yeah.
No, I mean, it's that's the thing. I mean, there's this nature that you will constantly, you know, and listen, dude, I haven't drawn, I don't want to lie here. I don't think I've drawn a completed comic book interior page. I think I can get away with that and not get struck by lightning. Um, for 25 years. So like my mind is like, I am not going to draw a comic book page ever again in that respect. But anytime I'm overworked and exhausted and I see a comic book, I'm like, oh man, I'd really like to draw some comics. And I just go, what the? And I'm like, what am I doing to myself? What am I doing? Like, because I know what it takes. It's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a very specific muscle. I mean, look, there are tons of cartoonists who just do covers.
yeah,
They're just cover artists because comics is just so you know what it takes. It's just a lot of labor for minimal payoff sometimes, most of
yeah,
the time. It's gotta be a real personal thing or like me, you're just kind of building a body of work, a library, then you have no option but to make the pages happen. Um But making a career in comics, man, it's tricky. It's always been tricky. It's always gonna be tricky. And I just didn't know that going in.
yeah. Well, I mean, who would ever? Even if someone told you, you wouldn't have listened. Like there's like because you don't listen. You're like, okay, yeah, yeah, okay, great. That's gonna be hard. Okay, I got it.
And I had people telling me that. I mean, I had, whether it be friends or editors or professionals, when I was trying to break in, yeah, it ain't happening for you, bud.
Mhm.
And I was like, all right, we'll see.
Right.
you know?
Well, I guess I mean, it's a matter of The adage of, like, there's no wrong answer. It's just an answer for the wrong question, and you hold on to that wrong answer, and eventually, when the right question comes, it fits perfectly, and that's the thing. So, like, if you're running
Mm,
up with samples that look like Copra and you're like, "I wanna draw Captain America," like, there's a chance that they're gonna be like, "This isn't the thing. This isn't gonna happen."
right,
And it's not to say that it would be the wrong thing. I think it would be fantastic. I would love to see everybody get a crack at drawing the books of their dreams because I think something magical will happen. Not for everyone, but I think out of that
right.
chance, you're going to see something that's going to blow your mind. I don't know. I mean, the fact that you persist through that is a unique quality. One your parents probably go,
They were pretty supportive in general.
"That's good."
I'm sure it's like it was just a weird mystery, like, "You're doing what? You're drawing what now?" It's like, I was just consistent in my comic book making as a child. Even when I would take breaks, I would still snap back into that. That was my go-to. So, yeah, I think that served me well in just, like, sitting at the board, making the thing, you know? You work through it, you don't work around it. You don't suddenly make 50 issues. Um, like, out of nowhere, like, you have to sit through every single
Mhm.
page and make it work, and they're not all gonna be home runs, you just have to think of the bigger picture of, like, "Well, what am I trying to say? What am I trying to do?" And ultimately, I got through it by I just wanna entertain people. I just want this to be a cool comic that people are enjoying,
Yeah,
And if it has subtext, great. If people pick up on it, great. If they don't, great. As long as they pick it up. As long as they
that's even
pick up the
better.
comic itself, that's all I
Yeah,
want,
right.
you know? Maybe they'll reread it, love it later. Maybe they liked it at first. Maybe they were on the fence and then they love it. Maybe they got tired of it. It all ebbs and flows. And you know what? Same thing with stores. They could order a million copies or two
Mhm.
and change their orders the next week or the next month or whatever, the next season. And again, not to take it personally, that was a lesson, that came pretty quick. It's like, no, it's not about a popularity contest. It's not personal,
Right.
So,
How far out were you planning, I guess, in your storyline?
oh, not that far at all. Not that far at all. I mean, I sort of had a larger, I had a larger direction, but I planned it issue by issue.
Okay.
Again, like the old school comics. This was all like all the comics we loved growing up. That's how they were made.
Mhm.
You had no idea what was coming up next month. You didn't have a 5-year plan. Are you kidding? I don't
Right.
have a 5-issue plan. Like I don't, and I wasn't writing for the trade. I wanted every issue to be not self-contained, it's still part of a story, but you could still get something out of
Mhm.
it, the way we read random comics out of order back in the day, skip an issue because, the 7-Eleven didn't get it in or whatever. You have to figure it out. Maybe get a back issue next time. That was my approach to it.
Okay.
So I didn't have a huge plan. I had enough of a plan to be like, "Okay, I think I could do 12 issues." And by the end of the 12, I'm like, "Okay, I could definitely expand this a little further to maybe 36." That sounds like, ooh, that's
That's a huge undertaking if you think about it. Like, if you like, because that first year is probably always the hardest year. You have to grind in that first year to figure things out, and get your rhythm going.
yeah. Once you get through 12, you're like, "I could do
Yeah,
36."
right.
I could do that's what, another couple of years? It took me a little longer than a couple of years, but it's doable, and then you kinda start looking for examples like, well, fuck, Savage Dragon is up to issue
Sure.
200, Cerebus got to 300,
Mhm.
like, it's doable, you just have to sit and do it. If I didn't wanna do it, I wouldn't. I'd end the story, wrap it up, and go to something
Mhm.
else. Pitch to other companies and I started working for companies. That's the funny part is that's what I mean by, like, this catapulted my career, the career I thought I wanted, which was I started being hired for other gigs,
Yeah.
you
I mean, you
know?
worked for Marvel
And I
and
finally
DC.
got to yeah, and I got to see and independence too. And I got to see, like, do I wanna do that more or less? I mean, and it was a privilege to even have that option, you know? Uh, but the fact that I have COPRA to go back to is so righteous. It's so fucking cool.
Sure.
I'm super lucky that I have that that's home to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've built it, you've based, and you can
Yeah.
kind of go off on some, adventure, try something.
Yeah, yeah. But it was issue by issue. It wasn't like, "Oh, I'm gonna set out to do 50 or 100 or 200 issues." It's like, "No, no, no, no. I gotta get the one in front of my desk done,
Okay.
and then ship it, get it out my system, get it out the door, get it to readers and subscribers in stores. Okay, then the next issue. How am I gonna do
Mhm,
this? How am I gonna write this? What do I want it to look like? What's it gonna sound like, What's the cover gonna be? What's the tone of the thing?" So I did sort of not reinvent the wheel every issue, but it was like, there was no planning ahead, pretty and I had no editor, so I had to figure it out.
that's super tough. You didn't have someone to sort of bounce off with in the terms of, like, looking at the whole entirety of the project. Like, they're not
Right.
like, "Hey, this is quite a tone shift that we're doing here, or like, how is this, like, where is this leading to?" And you're like, for you, you're like, "This was what feels good this month. I'm gonna go this way."
Yeah, well, it was I didn't have an editor, I couldn't afford one, and there was no time. There was no time to wait for feedback and then implement those changes. It was just like go, go,
Yeah.
go. So if I felt the need that, okay, the next 6 issues are gonna be self-contained personal stories focusing on different characters, that's what it's gonna be.
Mhm.
It wasn't like, preconceived early on, it was just sort of like that's what felt good in the moment, it felt right. And then I'm gonna revisit a huge storyline with tons of subplots and all these layers and different characters, and it's gonna be chaotic. That was my choice. And then I'll make sense of it at the end of it. So it was a lot of juggling, it was a lot of figuring things out on the fly, but that's what kept it fun for me. I've kept it fresh, hopefully for the reader, not too frustrating. Again, if it looked cool, if it looked fun and they got something out of it, awesome.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. I'm not out to frustrate or challenge anyone. Like I'm not here to like deter people. Like I want to open arms,
Mhm.
welcome. Like, hey, new readers, or you're starting in issue 26. Awesome. I hope you get something out of this. There's only so much I could do.
Well, you also, I mean, I guess you always use the device of having that sort of intro, each issue, kinda like that there's a, because you have this, you use a device of having, like, kind of who these people are, get you up to speed, like, on page 1 kind of stuff.
No, not always. That came later. I was like, yeah, in the 20s. That's when I was rereading a lot of Marvel comics too, and I'm like, well, how did they do this? How did Roger Stern write the Avengers every month and have it be actually really cool? I came to those comics as an adult, by the way. Those Avengers comics.
They're
I
so
read it.
good, aren't they?
They're so great. He's so good. It's like I think the best Roger Stern is those Avengers because he's juggling so many things and events, and it's so smooth.
Mhm.
And he doesn't write down, right? Like it's like you got to keep up, but I'm going to make it cool and compelling for you to kind of jump on board without too much of a hassle. And so I learned that from him and like Mark Gruenwald and John Byrne, actually,
Sure.
maybe a little bit of Paul Levitz. When he was doing Legion, he had certain plot tricks um, that I picked up on, and so around the 20s, that's when I started introducing more family friendly type, not family friendly, reader friendly, like, hey, this is the cast, this is what they do,
Mhm.
and exposition doesn't have to be bad. It could be just a tool, a storytelling tool.
It's very fun. It's very personable, and, like, and you even wrap it up with your own voice. Like, you kind of do this sort of, like, narrator's approach at the top of the page, and by the bottom of the page, it's you having fun with the reader.
Pretty much, yeah, yeah. Because again, these are intimate objects, right? This is my underground independent sensibility creeping into this thing. And by the way, I gotta say, when I discovered Stan Lee, Jack Kirby comics when I was a kid, I was handed down some reprints. I immediately fell in love with that stuff. Like the comics as a kid suddenly had huge captions, lots of dialogue. I did my own phony bullpen bulletins page of just like fake comics and just text talking to the reader. And I was like 10.
Wow.
And to me, it wasn't like, what is this old fogey comics? Like, it's not. It's not X-Force, like, I don't it was like, "What is this magical, cool, like, oh my god." I mean, Stanley was so great at
Mhm.
that, really making, like, an inviting environment for, like, a new reader, just to feel like you're part of something, like, if anything, he was great for that, and I really picked up on that as a kid who had no connections to the Marvel. I was a DC guy, I wasn't a Marvel guy, so it really struck me, and, so what you're describing now is sort of like I'm getting a chance to flex those impulses
Mhm.
a little bit, so I try when I can, whenever it's appropriate. So, but I guess from Stan Lee, yeah, I never really thought, but I think it comes from that, yeah.
I mean, it was a very much a Marvel tradition, I think, having that sort of third person omniscient voice saying, "All right, reader, here we are. Here's where we were,
Yeah,
and get ready because here's where we're going." And like that kind of stuff was always kind of exciting when you're a kid because, like you said, you didn't get every issue.
right,
You might as well
right.
you might as well keep the reader's hand held just enough to get them into the next one.
Yeah, well, even if they get the issues, I mean, especially for me, if they get a comic every month or 2 months or 3 months, whatever the case may be, you're asking a lot of people, a lot from the people to remember anything.
Mhm.
So it's like a little refresher doesn't
No.
hurt. And it's a good challenge as a writer to sort of like, well, how do you represent this information in a fresh new way that's not boring to you as a writer, where you're not like, oh, well, this is Spider-Man and he was bitten by blah, 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 blah. Well, how do you make that interesting and funny and part of the story, part of the whole package, part of the whole
Yeah.
experience? Uh, and that's something that I'm very aware of is the experience. I'm trying to the older I get and the more I do comics, I'm aware of that. And I appreciate comics where, they might be written off as whatever, not great pieces of art, but they are experiences. You want a certain thrill from the certain thing or a certain charge from that other thing. It's all fine. It's all valid. It's all comics,
Mhm.
So it doesn't have to be like the highest of the high piece of art. That was my first mistake back then. It's like just get over yourself, just make a
Yeah.
thing, just sit and make a thing. You don't decide how it lands.
That's true. I mean, I think we spent a lot of time, or we can spend a lot of time thinking about how it's gonna land in the world. This is how people are gonna engage with it, and you have no idea. You have no idea whether they're going to be thumbing through it on the subway, if they're gonna take the time and have a glass of wine and sit back and read this thing, or is it gonna be a kid in the back of a car between 2 siblings who are having a fight? Like, you don't get to control this.
You can't control it at all. No, no, no. You can just control what you put out, but hey, leave it to us overthinkers to worry about that stuff.
Sure.
It's an impulse that I'm trying to fight. Don't get me wrong, I overthink the shit out of this stuff,
Right.
but I'm trying to fight it. I'm trying to make it be like, well, it doesn't matter. Just get the work done. Just get the work
Yeah, but I
done.
think if you can I think, I was talking to another guest recently about the idea, and how I think one of the most important things that we can always do when we're engaging with our work and our craft is the intention. Like, what's the intention? Like, if your intention is to make this fun, don't get mired down in the details because the details will never be fun for somebody else. Like
Right,
you really need to kind
right.
of like have some like be able to like step away and have that 30,000 foot view enough to be able to keep yourself on track rather than getting kind of worked into this like corner of your own device.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good solution. I'd say unless you really get off on those kind of details, you know, you hope that the audience is with you. It's gonna be tough,
Yeah.
maybe, but it's sort of like the world building thing. It's like, I think a lot of people just get off on designing the world and talking about the world and building it up, and that's the end game for them.
Hmm.
You know, that is the end.
Yeah.
It's not the means to an end. That is it. And so when it comes to making the comic, all their enthusiasm is sort of out the window because they just figured it out
Right.
already.
Right.
Uh, and I sort of
And
do.
they're walking their characters around, just showing you the cool world that they made up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or just telling a
Yeah.
story. And that's all I was trying to do is just tell a story and developing the characters from that point on. None of that stuff was figured out when I
No,
was
but it's
when
readable,
COPRA
dude.
started.
It's totally readable. Like I sat down, I think I'd like got through the first half. You sent me like the big chunk at the end. And like, I
Mhm.
think it was like 2 sessions of reading the first half of that, and then the second half, I'm like, "Okay." I think it was like on Friday night, I'm like, "Oh, I better read this before before I talk to him next week," and sat down, and I just went right through the whole second half, like, in one sitting, and I was like, "Oh." And I'm like, I didn't expect like, I just kept seeing, like, the scroll go lower. I'm like, "Oh, like, this is just cruising." So, like, it's a really readable thing, and, like, I don't have all the lore. I don't know what happened in the previous, iterations of all
Yeah,
this
yeah.
stuff. So I'm like, but I didn't feel I don't care about anybody. I don't know anybody. Like you gave enough of all the touch points for me to go like,
Sure.
okay, well these are the okay, so she's looking for her brother. This person's this, well, this
Sure,
person's
sure.
killed this oh, okay, like it's you're doing the comic thing. You're like, how dare you have killed my brother's sister's friend? I'm gonna seek
Right.
vengeance on you. It's like, okay, this person's here because they killed their brother's secret. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, right, right. I mean, look, we didn't start with X-Men 1, you
Oh,
know, back in the day, it's like that's again, that's my experience with comics, and I just try to tap into that.
all right. So here's the I guess the $20,000 question. When does this come out for everybody?
Well, the collection comes out in
Okay,
September, I think September 10th, which is upon
it's
us. Oh my
very
god.
soon.
Yeah,
It's terrible.
pretty
It's terribly soon. Yes.
pretty soon, and this is the final book. It's gonna be the 8th, the final we call them rounds. Round 8
Nice.
is gonna come out. Oprah Round 8, out by Image Comics. And then we're gonna do a hardcover. We're gonna start releasing hardcover editions of this material. One already exists. The first hardcover collects the first 12 issues, and then we're just gonna continue to put them out in that format, which is a little kind of a deluxe
Hmm.
edition, a little oversized
Cool.
hardcover. It's a really cool edition. But for me, it's like playing Tetris because I do have to map out like 4 books worth of what goes where. Because there's a lot of
Hmm.
extras, and story wise, one story might fit better here. It'll make sense when you read it,
Okay.
but it requires a lot of planning, and that's kind of what I'm in the
I
middle
love
of.
that.
But yeah, this book, The Death of Copra arc, the final arc, does come out September 10th. Um, and I'm
You
stoked.
should
I'm
be.
stoked to see it all in one shot. I'm stoked for people like you who read it all in one shot.
Hmm.
And maybe, I've heard of people doing complete rereads from the beginning. And I'm super interested in that because I'm like, I wonder how it holds up,
Yeah.
you know? Because sometimes I just don't care about that stuff, like if a book take Dark Knight Returns, for example. The visual style of how it starts and how it ends are kind of different. And I don't mind that.
Mm-mm.
I kind of like that. I think that's kind of like human growth, it's cool. It doesn't have to be so specific from beginning to end. That's fine too. That would be like Watchmen. Watchmen is pretty consistent
Hmm.
all the way through. But that's Dave Gibbons as an artist. He brings that to the table. Frank Miller and Klaus Janson and Lynn Varley brought something else visually. And that's how I treated Copra. It's like, hey, these characters might look a little different 50 issues later, 10 issues later, even. But that was me refining my style.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the story. I think that's sort of the subtext or the meta text, I guess, which is like, this is coming from a creator who's just figuring this stuff out
Hmm.
and holds together as a traditional story. Great. Awesome. That was the intent. And if anything, at least see it for like a body of expression.
Yeah. Dude, it's so hard. It is so hard to carve a space out in the chaos that exists in this world as a creative person, and to build an audience, to hold an audience, to entertain an audience for a lengthy period of time. Like, this isn't like, hey, good job, you did this 4 issue miniseries. Well done, Michelle. Off you go. Like, you've been keeping people entertained and engaged for a long time now, and that's like a huge accomplishment at any level, regardless of, as you were saying, like, it's not about you made more money than somebody else, so that makes you more valuable than somebody else. That's not the case. Like, the value you
Sure.
brought over these 50 issues is as valuable as anything else to anybody in the world, because it's their choice. It's their time.
Right. Right. The modern attention span is crazy limited. I mean, speaking from experience too. I mean, that's just the way the world is right now. So I recognize that. I recognize that I'm very fortunate that people still give a shit 13 years
Yeah.
later, you know? Um, and I took some risks in that. In that, like, I walked away for a couple of years to work on other stuff, um, on other people's properties, on work for hire assignments. And I came back to Copra, and I was met with even more readers and more enthusiasm than before. I was super lucky in that way.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I also, I don't know, maybe I've built a world that they like, but I also treat my readers with respect, and I recognize that it's a relationship. It's not sort of this sort of fly by night trendy thing, stepping stone for something else that's
Mhm.
cool. It's not like, hip cool little thing that I'm doing. It's like, no, 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 this is what I'm doing. I'm here and I'm sharing it with you.
Right.
And I think people recognize that, and that's certainly what I like about certain comics. And that's why I stick around with certain creators or certain titles to the very end, because that's what comics offers, man. That's like specifically what comics
Mhm.
offers, that no one else does. No one else can. No other medium does. I mean, it doesn't in such a specific
Yeah.
way. Others do it in certain ways, of course. I'm not saying comics is the only place that does that, but they do it in their own specific way, and that's why I don't even like comparing it to different art forms. It's very much its
They're
own beautiful
all different.
thing.
They're all different. I mean, that's the thing. I'm rewatching Atlanta that was on FX
Mhm.
with Donald Glover, and boy, did they set a tone for that show, and they just stuck with it, and
Yeah.
it's such an accomplishment of storytelling, and I'm like, "Damn, good job."
Yeah, yeah, they maximize, like, the television show. They
Yeah,
maximize that format to make it a very intimate thing, a very cool personal vision.
half-hour show, and it has so much
Right.
weight in every episode.
It's great. I should revisit that. It's been a
I um, I'm not correcting you here, but I'm offering you an option
Oh, sure.
away from the word lucky to fortunate.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
because
Okay.
I do see the term lucky being bandied about, but it's a very passive term. And fortunate, I think feel you're putting yourself in a position to be fortunate. Luck is like I said, the lightning strike. You don't really get to, you can make your luck, you can generate it by putting yourself out there, but
Yeah,
I think you've been fortunate.
yeah, I guess that wouldn't really be applicable to my circumstance anyway.
Yeah.
So I guess luck was just sort of like a more general term that's not really that
Yeah.
specific. I guess fortunate is a nicer, truer way
Yeah. Well,
of
that's what it feels
of
like
putting
when I
it.
heard you say that. I was like, and I wrote the word down. I'm like, yeah, this is what it feels like to me. So I wanted to pass it on.
Yeah, I mean, not to break down the meaning of luck. I mean, luck. I mean, like they say, it's either it's a combination of luck, talent, timing,
Hmm.
work ethic. Yeah, I am fortunate to have that readership and to have people that care. I think luck is an ingredient.
I mean, you're fortunate now. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I'm fortunate now as a result.
yes,
Yeah,
I
for
mean, you're in
sure.
a fortunate position, and
Yeah,
it's not you're not lucky to have those readers. You're fortunate to have those readers because
right.
they have stuck with you.
Sure.
The lucky would be is that
Yeah, very.
they forgot their password to Patreon and they can't unsubscribe.
Hooray for me.
Exactly. So okay, so obviously you have to figure out the Tetris puzzle of the future with
Mhm.
with this body of work, and how do you repackage it, represent it? Are there other things you can do with it moving forward? You can't be sitting bereft of ideas. I mean, you've been busy, but that doesn't mean your subconscious has been asleep.
No, it's nuts. I mean, I'm going through tons of, it could be notes or lists or older projects or newer projects, or it could be writing or visual or,
I'll
it's
bet.
a lot. It's a lot of stuff. That's why it's like, it's the opposite of a quiet time. It's not a quiet down. It's not retirement. It's not a break. I wish I had the summer as a break. I thought it would be a break, and
Mhm.
it's been the opposite. Like, no, I'm doing tons of stuff. I'm being pulled in so many directions that it has to quiet down soon so I could just focus on at least a couple of things.
Mhm.
But now, yeah, it's the Tetris book repackaging thing. It's commissions, it's projects, it's collaboration, possible collaborations, um, different publishers, just lots of stuff that doesn't have to do with comics necessarily. Um, so there's a lot of juggling. It's just again not juggling the page, which is a different kind of juggling.
Mhm.
This is just the kind of thing, and I wasn't expecting it. I thought it'd be like I said, I thought it'd be quieter, calmer, more measured, and it's not. It's anything but. There's also I want to study other artists. Where we were talking about studying artists before. I do want to kind of. I took a break from retrospective and looking at people's careers and studying their trajectories. I kind of want to revisit that a little bit.
Mhm.
I don't know what that's going to look like exactly, but we'll see. It's all exciting stuff. It's all good stuff. There's nothing. I don't even have anything to hint at because it's all so eh, not abstract, but there's nothing definite there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's nothing I could really just be like, I can't wait to show you my so and so project. It's like I look like creatively, it's just weird because it's not about sitting at I've been used to just that rhythm of just
Right.
producing an issue. That's what I
Well,
know
the
how to do.
music has
That's what I
stopped. Like somebody hit stop on the song that's been playing.
Yeah, but now I gotta figure out the tour, and now marketing, and now I gotta figure out the album cover, I gotta figure all the other stuff out
Uh-huh.
when really I just wanna music. So it's strange. It's not boring. I'm still busy, but it is different. So we'll see how it works. We'll see how 2026 shakes out.
Yeah, I'm yeah, listen, I love developing things. Like to me, like that's a huge chunk of my enjoyment is coming up with the idea, figuring all the sort of the angles out of everything. So I'm always interested in like when somebody like because right now you're in this flux state between
Mhm,
making, accomplishing, and now needing to chart a new direction. And you have to sort of
mhm.
like weigh out all like there are obviously going to be some people who've been like, hey man, when you're done with Copra, let's talk. Now it's like it's time. And you go, well, how much time do I want to devote to something? And what is going to be this sort of return? Because do you want another return like a Copra return? Do you want something that's going to take 5 years of your life? Do you want something that's going to take a year of your life? Like these are big questions that you have to kind of
Yeah,
resolve.
yeah, those are real concerns for sure. All I know is that I just got out of a huge relationship,
Oh, buddy,
you
I'm
know?
sorry.
Yeah. No, this is, so do I play the field? Do I just
Well,
jump back into
you're
something more
gonna have to show a little leg right
you
now.
know?
Just give a little bit.
Hey, that's why I'm here, man. That's why I showed
I know.
up.
Well, listen, I'm excited to see how this is going to play out for you because it's interesting.
Thank
You're a 10-year overnight sensation. So now it's like,
Yeah, exactly.
what
Right.
what's the
The follow-up.
yeah. So yeah,
What's the encore? The encore is the encore is the rest of my fucking life. I gotta figure this out, It's like I gotta a gig's a gig. I gotta kinda snap back into that sort of blue collar, like, "All right, what's the work? Where's the work?" Fun where the work is.
Michelle, that might be it. That might be it for like a year or two. Just like do a
Sure.
hustle. You know what I mean? Just like pick up, catch and release, and do a bunch of things. Maybe show yourself to people who weren't aware of what you were doing, and
Mhm.
then in the interim, figure the thing out that you really want to do, and then hop back onto that.
Yeah, I'm not bored. I'm excited for all the stuff that's gonna
Yeah.
happen. I just don't know exactly what or in what order.
No.
So,
more Tetris. More Tetris.
oh, man. Luckily, I love Tetris, so I'm good. I'm good with
That's good. That's good. That means you're a good packer as well.
Yeah, list making, Tetris, I can't wait. I can't wait to finalize something.
We could be friends, I think, because
Yeah.
the same way. It's like I love that stuff. Cool. So, and you got cons coming. I'm sure you're going to do New York because you're in the city.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna do it's been first time since pre-COVID.
Oh, wow.
I'm doing New York. I'm doing Rose City in Portland, then back to back with Eddie Pecan in Pittsburgh, and then I'm doing CXC in Columbus, and that's all September. Then New York Comic Con, and then who knows in 2026. I'm still setting up shows for 2026.
Nice.
So it's not over. So I'm still hitting the road now while I can, you know.
It's its own business. I
Uh,
mean, you're kind of running three or four businesses: making comics, producing comics, and shipping comics, Patreon, and conventions. Like they're all different jobs.
yeah, they're all different gears, and I got to do it all. It has to get done.
It's the unfortunate side effect.
But it's fun. If it was like a drag, I wouldn't be doing it, you know? I wouldn't do shows and stuff, you know? Again, I'm not exhausted
Yeah,
yet, so I know some dudes who that's all they do is shows, you
yeah,
know? Um, Good on them,
yeah.
you know? So we'll see. I'm gonna have a blast. I mean, it's an excuse for me to socialize and catch up with friends, so and meet new readers, meet old readers. It's all great, you know? So New York Comic Con is on the horizon. No, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, that's on the plate
Right
too,
on, man. Well, it's I've seen that show go from hotels to Javits Center back to hotels. It's been all over the map, and it's still a big event.
for sure. Yeah, I'll be at the artist alley section.
Hmm.
You know, it's almost like its own little side convention. So you know, I'll be there all weekend, and then I'll sneak away to hang out or bin dive or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Nice, man. Well, hopefully you'll be getting back to the drawing board soon in some fashion, except for commissions, pages. We're talking pages.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh no, I'm still drawing stuff. I mean, I got a couple commissions to do today, so I'm still getting my practice in. You know, so I'm good. Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Engaging with new comics, especially ones of the indie variety, it's like trying food you've never experienced before. From the outside, it's strange, different. So our reptile brain kicks in to protect us from the unknown and potentially our lives. While reading comics is almost as far from a life threatening situation, it still requires some risk. All that is to say, when I first saw Michel's art, it was a snapshot of a drawing of a popular character texted to me, and I didn't get it. I had no context. Therefore, I didn't internalize the differences as positives. But one of the great parts about doing this podcast is I'm committed to connect with amazing creators across the spectrum. Over the intervening years since that text, I checked in on Michel and his work, and I began to gain a whiff of a clue to the source of his artistic magic. And in preparation for our conversation here, I read the Death of COPRA collection, and that's where I gained the much needed context to finally, as David Lopan said, get it. Now, before you write me off entirely for my closed mindedness, here's some context. I don't think I saw an indie comic until I was 14 or 15, say 1981 or 82. I had no access to comic shops, and it wasn't until I attended my first comic convention in, I think, 82 that a few vendors suggested comics that weren't big two books. Like many teenage readers of that time, my tastes were rooted in the 70s superhero mainstream. Craziness and wildness of Jack Kirby and Frank Robbins, and Alex Toth's cartoon creations. Of course, Spider Man, Batman, the Avengers, Legion of Superheroes, and the X Men. But by 1980, two Marvel series resonated like no other for me: Master of Kung Fu and the Micronauts. Each an understandable response to my love for James Bond, Bruce Lee, and Star Wars. These books existed just outside the mainstream and opened enough of a portal to embrace a broader spectrum of comics when I gained regular access to comic shops. which happened to be just as the indie market expanded. Today, we're lucky to have creators like Michel making comics inspired by the mainstreamiest of books, but they're as indie as can be. His work has been a great reminder for me to always try different things because one never knows what one will like until we try it. Okay, next week we wrap up season 18 with the return of a superstar guest from season 6. Insert drumroll. Get ready for a deep conversation with the ever mind blowing J.H. Williams III. I hope you tune in. Thanks for listening.